On this edition for Saturday, May 26th, the two Koreas meet again. What does it mean for the on-again, off-again U.S.-North Korean summit? In our signature segment, voters in Maine go to the polls to rank all of the candidates. And are police officers being asked to do too much? Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
From the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center in New York, Hari Srinivasan.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in held an unexpected second summit today. The two leaders met in secret for 2 hours on the North Korean side of the demilitarized zone. They emerged for handshakes and hugs. Officials said the two men again discussed their plans to denuclearize the peninsula and the possibility of reviving a June 12th summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump in Singapore. 2 days ago, President Trump abruptly canceled the planned summit with Kim Jong-un, but then yesterday he told reporters it was still possible. The president tweeted last night, quote, "We are having very productive talks with North Korea about reinstating the summit." A U.S. advance team of White House and State Department officials are reportedly heading to Singapore to prepare for the possibility of the North Korean-U.S. summit. The U.S. has reached a deal with the Chinese telecommunications firm ZTE that would restore its ability to do business with U.S. suppliers, according to reports quoting a senior congressional aide. In April, ZTE was banned from doing business with U.S. technology suppliers after it was discovered it had violated U.S. sanctions against Iran and North Korea. President Trump appeared to confirm the reports, tweeting late yesterday, "I closed it down, then let it reopen with high-level security guarantees." Senator Mark Warner, vice chairman of the Intelligence Committee, responded this morning cautioning the president that ZTE poses a national security threat to the United States. President Trump also announced this morning on Twitter that a Utah man jailed in Venezuela for 2 years without a trial has been released.
I'm calling on the people of America. I need your help to get me out of this place.
Joshua Holt traveled to Venezuela in 2016 to marry a woman he met online, but authorities there accused him of stockpiling weapons and held him in a Caracas jail. Holt's release is a result of 2 years of lobbying by his family and U.S. officials. Holt and his wife are expected to be reunited with family at the White House this evening. The president of the University of Southern California is stepping down after being accused of putting the school's reputation and fundraising above student safety. Faculty, alumni, students, and the Board of Trustees called for the resignation of President C.L. Max Nikias for failing to report abuse by a school gynecologist to the state medical board. A 2016 internal investigation found that Dr. George Tyndall had conducted inappropriate pelvic exams and made sexually offensive remarks to students at the campus health center. The USC Academic Senate said, quote, "New leadership is in the best interest of the university now and going forward." Florida Governor Rick Scott declared a state of emergency this morning as subtropical storm Alberto, the first named storm of the 2018 hurricane season, moves through the Caribbean towards the U.S. Gulf Coast, Florida, Cuba, and Mexico. Alberto is expected to deliver heavy rainfall, mudslides, and severe flooding to southern Florida and the Panhandle. Officials are warning that the entire state could be affected. The 6-month hurricane season does not officially begin until June 1. It's primary season around the country, and during this election cycle, one state will be trying out a new way of deciding who wins. Maine is set to become the first state in the nation to use a method called ranked choice voting. Rather than picking just one candidate, voters will rank their preference of each candidate on the ballot from first to last. The system is designed to ensure that candidates win not just with the most votes, but with a majority of the votes. Advocates say it will make elections more democratic. Opponents say it violates the state's constitution. On a recent spring Saturday in a small Maine town west of Bangor, Republicans gathered in a local school gym for a gubernatorial debate, and there was one issue on which all agreed.
It's a scam. It undermines the integrity of our election process.
It was put forward by a group of people who wanted to make sure that a conservative governor never got elected again.
So the reality is we're not happy with it.
Blatantly opposed to it, very unconstitutional.
The issue that united them is how the winner in their election will be chosen. Instead of voters just picking their favorite candidate in Maine's primaries on June 12th, they will be listing their choices in order, from favorite to least favorite, and the votes will be tallied using a new system. It's called ranked choice voting. Here's how it works. Let's say there are 4 candidates. Voters fill out their ballots indicating their preference for first, second, third, and fourth. The results are then counted. If any candidate gets more than 50% of the first place votes, a majority, he or she is the outright winner. But in a scenario where no one gets 50%, the candidate with the fewest first place votes is eliminated, and now 3 are left. If your first place choice is now gone, your second choice moves up on your ballot and becomes your first. Your third moves to second, and your fourth moves to third. The votes are recounted, and if there is still no candidate with more than 50% of the first place votes, the process continues. The person with the least first place votes is again eliminated. Now 2 are left. The votes are counted a final time. The candidate with the most votes will certainly have more than 50%. That person wins. Also known as instant runoff, the system has been used in countries like Australia and Ireland, as well as in municipal elections in U.S. cities, including San Francisco and Portland, right here in Maine. But no American state has ever used ranked choice voting in a statewide primary. Until now.
We are the people.
Dick Woodbury served as an independent state legislator for 10 years. He says ranked choice voting is key to improving the political system for everyone.
I'm hopeful that it'll be transformative to politics in Maine, but also a model for the country.
Bills to use ranked choice had been introduced in Maine's legislature for more than a decade, but had not passed. So Woodbury and Kyra McCormick, a political consultant who's worked for Democrats and independents, helped organize an effort to get it on the ballot for voters to decide in 2016. They thought it made sense in a state where many elections include more choices than just one Democrat and one Republican, and candidates have often won without getting even 50% of the votes.
9 of our last 11 governor's races were won by less than a majority.
We have so many independents that run and are competitive in our politics, and yet we have a system that forces us to choose just to make just one choice.
Maine's Republican Governor Paul LePage has been elected twice while never receiving a majority of the votes. In 2010, he won a 5-way race with less than 38%. In a 3-person race in 2014, he was reelected with 48%. Advocates say ranking candidates gives voters confidence that choosing a long-shot candidate won't lead to so-called wasted votes. That's because a voter's second and third choices will be counted if their first choice is eliminated, and no one can be elected without winning a majority. Woodbury says it changes the way candidates engage in politics. They can't afford to alienate voters who say might pick them as second choice.
You've got to reach out more broadly to the populace, and you can't be too negative to people who are your opponents. It nudges politics toward more centrism, where you're appealing to a broader number of people. And you move that into the policymaking arena, I think you've got people who can work together better in a less partisan, divisive, gridlocked way, so that we have potential to really improve policymaking at the same time that we're improving politics.
Changing the way that votes are tabulated requires a major administrative effort for the people charged with running elections in Maine. Matthew Dunlap is Maine's Secretary of State.
When we talk about massive changes to election law, typically it's replacing a period with a comma. So this is very, very new.
Dunlap has released sample ballots, is participating in town hall events around the state, and even published an animated video to help educate voters on the new system.
Ranked choice voting allows voters to choose candidates in order of preference.
The key here, though, more than the people coming into the polls being able to understand it, is really them being able to trust it. And voter confidence has got to be our ultimate goal, that no matter what happens in the outcome of the election, I don't care who wins. I just want people to believe in the result.
Maine also has a unique history with a contested gubernatorial election that puts a change like ranked choice voting in conflict with the state's constitution. A three-way race for governor in 1879 with no majority winner almost led to a violent confrontation after the legislature was unable to decide who won the election.
Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, the hero of Gettysburg, was called out of retirement to protect the Capitol from insurrection. They put a cannon in the front door of the State House, snipers on the rooftops, and after 12 days they finally sorted it out. And after that, the legislature offered up an amendment to the Constitution to say whoever gets the most votes wins. No more of this. So that's why we do it that way. So ranked choice voting goes in the opposite direction.
State courts have ruled that without changing Maine's constitution, ranked choice voting can only be used in the primary for statewide offices. But for some opponents of the new system, even that is unconstitutional because it doesn't make the candidate with the most votes, what's known as a plurality, the automatic winner.
The word plurality is very specific in Maine's constitution. It means first past the post. Whoever has the most votes win. And that was deliberate and on purpose.
Republican Garrett Mason is the Maine Senate Majority Leader and a candidate for governor.
I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and the Constitution's clear on this matter. It's illegal.
Mason says partisan forces are behind the push for the new system.
This was a way to make sure that Paul LePage never got elected again, or someone like Paul LePage never got elected again. It's mean-spirited, it is partisan, and it's what they're doing is dragging Maine people through a complete mess.
Mary Mayhew is another candidate for governor in the Republican primary.
My own 84-year-old mother, who every time she talks to me about ranked choice voting gets angrier and angrier. She has been voting for a very long time, and she does not understand now what she has to do when she goes into the ballot box.
Bringing up this complaint about how it's going to be too confusing is really just a red herring and brought up by people who oppose the policy of ranked choice voting.
First reading and printed bill.
In fact, last year, the legislature voted to delay ranked choice voting. In response, advocates collected nearly 80,000 signatures, which, according to Maine law, overruled the legislature for the time being. Next month, there will be a ballot measure asking voters to make the system permanent for statewide primaries and federal elections. Kara McCormick says this is an issue that attracts people from across the political spectrum.
It is the partisan politicians who are trying to fit it into one of two boxes, but the people of Maine, the Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, and the volunteers, it's all of us. We are absolutely nonpartisan.
People are just ready for something, and Maine has done enough of the legwork leading up to this point that we can be where we are, where we're actually going to implement ranked choice voting.
Mainers will head to the polls on June 12th. Videos showing police use of force and police-involved shootings have become commonplace and divisive in the United States. While many police departments are initiating reforms, there's a growing call for alternatives to policing. That is, identifying situations where it might be best not to call law enforcement. Author Alex Vitale has taken a look at this issue and makes his case in his recent book, The End of Policing. In the first of our two-part report on alternative policing methods, NewsHour Weekend's Yvette Feliciano spoke with Vitale about whether or not we're asking police officers to do too much.
From last month's controversial arrest of two black men in a Philadelphia Starbucks to the viral videos of a black woman's contentious arrest in an Alabama Waffle House, to a school-based police officer near San Diego slamming a 17-year-old student onto the ground, to the fatal police shooting in New York of an unarmed black man who suffered from bipolar disorder, conversations about how police react when they're called to a scene, especially involving communities of color, are everywhere. But there's one idea that is different from all the others. What if police hadn't been involved in these incidents at all? That's what Alex Vitale, professor of sociology and coordinator of the Policing and Social Justice Project at Brooklyn College, argues in his recent book, The End of Policing.
In many cases, the solution to some of the problems with policing is not rejiggering what we do, but to just quit using police for that function altogether. I think it's a fair thing to say that most police officers wake up in the morning thinking about how to help people. I think they're motivated by the right kinds of desires. The problem is that they've been given a limited set of tools and placed into circumstances where those tools often can be counterproductive.
Vitalis says that modern-day policing was shaped by our country's racial history.
Policing in the era of Jim Crow segregation in the South and ghettoization in the North was shaped by pretty strong racial politics during that period. And so in a lot of northern and western cities, one of the major functions of policing was the ghettoization of black populations. The enforcement of racial borders, both in terms of social behavior and actual geography.
Was there a specific decade when we saw this change in, an overuse or over-reliance on police?
I think the expansion of police powers really happened over the last 40 plus years. And it begins with the kind of war on drugs, war on crime discourse that comes out of the Nixon administration, but really continues through the 80s and even into the 90s and the Clinton administration. For instance, we see dramatic expansions in school policing, the war on drugs, border policing. So it's been a kind of long-term bipartisan process of defining more and more social problems as things to be dealt with by police. We're not concerned about slave uprisings anymore. We're concerned about things like mass homelessness, black markets around drugs and sex work, the management of untreated mental illness, violence and behavioral problems in schools. And so as the social problems shift, the mission of policing shifts. And the question is really whether or not policing as an institution is best equipped to manage some of these problems.
Some police officials agree that policing was never meant to solve all of those problems. At a press conference in 2016, then Dallas Police Chief David Brown said the country's police are being asked to do too much.
Every societal failure, we put it off on the cops to solve. Not enough mental health funding. Let the cop handle it. Not enough drug addiction funding. Let's give it to the cops. Here in Dallas, we got a loose dog problem. Let's have the cops chase loose dogs.
San Jose's police chief says that the onus to deal with mental illness right now comes down to a police officer, and that is unfair. Although police have little training in mental health, about 10% of police interactions involve a person with a mental illness, and 1 in 4 people with mental disorder have histories of arrest.
Many people do see police as protectors. How do race and class impact how you view the police?
When we apply policing as the primary solution to a set of problems that are really driven by histories of economic exclusion, racialized oppression, then we produce outcomes that are racially skewed regardless of the attitudes or biases of individual officers. So that the war on drugs may be carried out in the places where the most complaints happen, but there's a reason why the complaints happen in poor communities and communities of color disproportionately. Even though drug dealing is widely distributed throughout our society, poor people don't have private spaces, they have limited resources, they're more likely to be engaged in black market activity for survival purposes, there's more hopelessness among young people so that their drug use takes a more dangerous and disruptive form. And so even the neutral professional application of the drug laws produces a racially disproportionate outcome.
As NewsHour Weekend has reported, many police forces have implemented diversity initiatives or anti-bias and de-escalation trainings. But Vitalis says there is no empirical evidence that these types of strategies improve police-community relations. For instance, one study found that police crisis intervention teams, in which officers are trained in de-escalation tactics by mental health professionals, did not reduce arrest rates for people with mental illnesses.
What about spending more money on more effective police academy training?
Over the last several years, we've responded to these most serious forms of police violence through a series of kind of procedural reforms to make the police more professional, to better communicate with the public, to try to restore trust in policing. But even if we reduce the most egregious use of force, we're not really addressing the tens of thousands of nonviolent punitive interactions between police and the public that produce the resentment and the escalation of tensions between police and the public. And I think we can look at the Eric Garner case in New York as an example of this.
In 2014, police tried to arrest Eric Garner, a black resident of Staten Island, New York, on suspicion of selling loose cigarettes. Garner, who had many run-ins with police, complained of being harassed and resisted arrest. One of the officers put him in a chokehold, asphyxiating and killing him.
A totally, seemingly innocuous interaction escalates over what are really non-criminal behaviors for the most part, tax avoidance and disorderly behavior in public. And it's that resistance that gets reacted to by tackling him, jumping on him, putting him in a chokehold, and ultimately killing him.
So what should police be doing? Where should we be pulling back? But also, what is their role in modern society?
We need to look concretely at the problems that police have been asked to solve and decide whether or not we can find non-coercive, non-punitive alternatives. And whatever's left at the end of that process, where we need that kind of powerful, coercive force, then so be it. I think the answer is to quit using police to solve every social problem under the sun. Instead, we need to invest in new systems of discipline that treat people with dignity and respect and try to identify what's driving problematic behavior and actually address those root causes. We know how to do this. We just need the political will to make it happen.
Read about developments this week in 3 prominent cases of police misconduct. Visit our website at pbs.org/newshour.
This is PBS NewsHour Weekend, Saturday.
By a large majority, Irish voters legalized abortion today, repealing a 1983 constitutional amendment that banned almost all abortions. The referendum follows a recent vote in Ireland to legalize same-sex marriage and is seen as a continued rebuke of the Catholic Church's authority. ITN's Penny Marshall reports from Dublin.
Ireland has spoken with a clear, strong voice, and this afternoon Dublin Castle was packed with those who wanted to shout about it. The Prime Minister came to share the moment with the Yes campaigners. He said Irish voters had trust and respect for women to make the right choices.
What we've seen today really is a culmination of a quiet revolution that's been taking place in Ireland for the past 10 or 20 years. This has been a great exercise of democracy and the people have spoken.
Repealing the 8th Amendment, which effectively bans abortion, marks a new start for Ireland as it breaks further from its conservative past.
It just means the world. We're elated today.
We don't even know what to say, we're so emotional, oh my God, we're so shocked.
Historical event for Ireland, huge, everybody feels it.
Something we've been waiting on for a very long time. I'm just very emotional, sorry.
The count reveals that the Yes vote won the day everywhere, in rural and urban areas alike, setting Ireland on a new path. It brings to an end months of divisive campaigning, which forced the old conservative Ireland to confront its younger, more liberal self. The turnout was high. More than 2 million here made their way to the polls. It's been a day of huge emotion, especially for women, a day history recorded massive social change. The government says new abortion laws will be in place by the end of the year.
Be sure to join us tomorrow for the second part of our report on alternative policing methods. We'll look at new technology and training designed to give officers less lethal options.
Its silicone tip expands upon contact,
slowing the round and broadening the area of impact, but not penetrating the skin.
Breathe and then just gently pull it. Dead center.
That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Have a good night.